Good morning. I don't know why I feel like I have to take my sunglasses off my head. Hope that you are well today. If we want to share a devotion here for a few minutes, we share a devotion from Christ in our home and our partners in ministry at Augsburg Fortress. Today we're invited to the book of Daniel in the Old Testament. So if you follow lectionary readings each day, yesterday on Monday we got the beginning part of this story. It is of those three dancing in the fiery furnace. Well, that's today's part, I think, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and King Nebuchadnezzar. So the first part of this, the folks stir up Nebuchadnezzar and get him to set up this big golden statue in his image and tell everyone that they have to bow down to that or face the wrath of the fiery furnace. We're going to pick up today there with the part when so they have disobeyed the edict and they're thrown into the furnace there that has been set up, I don't know, very, very hot. And so we pick up at verse 19. So hopefully I've stalled long enough for you to find your way to Daniel 3, verse 19. And if you were waiting for me to tell you, I apologize. So find your way to Daniel 19, chapter 3. We're going to be in verse 19. Then Nebuchadnezzar was so filled with rage against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face was distorted. He ordered the furnace heated up 7 times more than was customary, and ordered some of the strongest guards in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and throw them into the furnace of blazing fire. So the men were bound, still wearing their tunics, their trousers, their hats, and their other garments, and they were thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. There's so much repetition in this story that it's very sing-songy, and it's kind of fun to read through. Because the king's command was urgent and the furnace was so overheated, the raging flames killed the men who lifted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But the 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the furnace of blazing fire. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up quickly. He said to his counselors, "Was it not 3 men that we threw bound into the fire?" They answered the king, "True, O king." He replied, "But I see 4 men unbound, and they are not hurt, and the 4th has the appearance of a god." Nebuchadnezzar would then approach the door of the furnace of blazing fire and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their tunics were not harmed, and not even the smell of fire came from them. Nebuchadnezzar said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angels and delivered his servants, who trusted in him. They disobeyed the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree, a new decree. Any people, nation, or language that utters blasphemy against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, shall be torn limb from limb, and their houses be laid in ruins. For there is no other God who is able to deliver in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. A devotion today is entitled Our Silly Idols. It invites our focus to the 29th and penultimate verse that we just heard together. "For there is no other God who is able to deliver in this way." This is one of my congregation's favorite readings at the Easter Vigil. I was going to say that too. Reading all of Daniel 3, and notice the humor. Repeated lists of officials and musicians, a pompous king, the exaggerated details. Put stick-on mustaches on some kids and make them officials. Hand them some instruments and everyone laughing in no time. Daniel reminds us just how ridiculous we are when we put our trust in gods of our own making. He reminds us of what drastic measures we'll take to protect our self-created security. But notice the words of the 3 men just ahead of today's appointed passage. In 17:18. Again, we saw that yesterday if you were reading along with the lectionary. If our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the furnace of fire and out of your hand, O king, let him deliver us. But if not, we will not serve your gods, and we will not worship the golden statue which you have set up. Unlike Nebuchadnezzar, the faithfulness wasn't dependent on God performing party tricks. They were anchored in the truth that God is God, and nothing else is worth our trust. A prayer to pray together here from Christ in our home. Delivering God, free me when I am worshiping my own creations. Teach me to trust you alone. Amen. And as this day unfolds before you, be invited to continue in prayer for peace, for those persecuted for their faith, for our own Nancy Morrison. She heads towards surgery tomorrow. I'll see you after a bit here, Nancy. And for Bob and for all of those who hold themselves in faith and trust before God for whatever reason here today. And may God continue to bless you on your faithful journey. Peace be with you, my friends.